That is the question. If you're Dwayne Haskins, and it turns out the Ohio State quarterback who led the Buckeyes to a Rose Bowl win and a 13-1 record this season will declare. He'll enter the 2019 NFL Draft. Haskins is the presumptive favorite to be the first quarterback taken in the draft. Could be the first Big Ten quarterback selected in the first round since 1995. CC, how good can Haskins be?
Well, he's the best quarterback that's ever come from that institution. They've been playing football over 120 years. He's absolute by far the best thrower. People might have missed the season, 50 touchdown passes. Now, I don't like the fact only starting 14 or 15 games because typically we have seen quarterbacks be more successful in the pros. But given his situation, given that he can be a top 10, given that he is the first at his position, he's got to be able to come out of school, even though he doesn't have those 30 starts, 25 starts that we would like. He has a touch, has a big-time arm, is a competitor, is a great leader, is not a diva, not a high-maintenance guy. So if you want to have a young guy to be the face of your franchise for a number of years, I believe he's as good a prospect as we've seen come into the league in the last several years. So what he did at Ohio State and revamped that offense with Ryan Day, we hadn't seen that. Art Schlichter, 1982, last quarterback from Ohio State. You mentioned the Big Ten quarterbacks. That is just not a conference that produces a lot of NFL. I believe that Haskins is the brightest that we've seen in a long time.
That is a crazy stat, that no Big Ten quarterbacks been taken in the first round since Kerry Collins in '95. I think people hear, they're like, what about Drew Brees? Drew Brees was the very top of the second round when he was taken by then the San Diego Chargers. But I'm pretty close with a prominent Ohio State alum who I might have gone to a game with last year, who even last year was talking about this kid, Dwayne Haskins, even when they had four-year captain starting quarterback at the time. The name's escaping me. I forgot. The quarterback.
J.T. Barrett.
J.T. Barrett. Thank you. Apologies. Being told and people talking that when this kid gets on the field, he is going to change the way Ohio State traditionally plays football because of his ability to vertically pass the football.
Somewhat the situation Trevor Lawrence in Clemson. Yes. They were trying to take that offense to a different level. Pure drop back, big-time thrower. That's what Clemson had. That's what Ohio State had in Haskins.
And so the only knock on him is experience. And so he could have come back for another year. You come back for another year, then you're maybe not the #1 quarterback in your class. There's a lot of questions that come up. He had said about a month ago in an interview, because he's from the tri-state area, New Jersey, I think, that he would love to be taken by the Giants. Now, it was kind of a leading question. The Giants are the type of situation that could be ideal for him because of the lack of experience, where it's not a team that wants him to start immediately, where he can learn from a veteran quarterback and then take the reins either mid-season or in year 2. Because I believe in the talent. I do think it's very difficult for quarterbacks that only start the 1 year in college to come in and instantly make an impact. Mitch Trubisky was in a similar position.
Sure.
He's still getting his footing, and he's played a couple years of pro football at this point.
And you think his game translates to the pros pretty well?
Oh, he can throw it. He can throw it to any part of the field. He's got touch on the short passes. Intermediate we saw during the season. And being able to read coverages and not throw interceptions. He's got a big arm, but he doesn't take a lot of chances with the football. Still throwing in single digits as far as interceptions with those 50 touchdowns. Pretty special. I believe he's going to be a really good pro.
All right, let's move back to last night's game again. Yesterday, we wondered what it would take for Clemson to pull off the upset over Alabama. The answer was Trevor Lawrence. Oh, and a great all-around Tigers team. They beat the Crimson Tide 44-16 behind nearly 350 passing yards out of Trevor Lawrence. It is Clemson's second national title in 3 years, the first 15-0 season in modern college football history. Clemson Tigers are your national champs. Here's Clemson's head coach, Dabo Swinney, after the win.
There was a lot of talk about best ever all year long. We were never in that conversation. But tonight, there's no doubt. You know, first 15-0 team to beat Notre Dame and to beat Alabama to do it. This team won 13 games by 20 points or more and led by an unbelievable group of seniors.
One game doesn't define who you are. But I also told the players that sometimes we learn more when things don't go well, when we lose. You have to learn how to lose as well as how you win. And there's a lot of lessons for us to learn from the experience that we had in this game, whether you're a senior who's leaving or whether you're a player who's coming back and you see that we have work to do.
All right, Nick, when you look at what Clemson did not only this year, but what has been doing the last couple of years, can you now put these two programs on equal footing?
I think you have to in the right here and now. Over the last 4 years, they're both 55-4. They're both 2-time champions. They're both in the playoff every single year. They're 2-2 against each other. And I think more importantly than what I think, what the young athletes think, what the high school players think. That Clemson has on their rosters, freshmen this year, the #1 player from Ohio, got a pretty damn good football school in Ohio. They got the #1 player from Alabama. They got a pretty good football school in Alabama. And what Dabo Swinney has done is, to me, the only thing I can compare it to is what Coach K did at Duke when he took over a team that was not a blue blood, that was not one of these all-time great programs, and turned it into one. If at the beginning of this decade, when Nick Saban had already won a title in Alabama and was setting up this infrastructure, if you'd have come to me or I think anyone and said, hey, there's going to be one team that by the end of the decade is toe-and-toe, neck-and-neck with Alabama year in, year out, people might have said SC, they might have said Oklahoma, they might have said Ohio State, they might have said Texas, might have said Florida.
Not Clemson.
Clemson wouldn't have been one of the first 15. Clemson, yeah, they won a national title in '81. Before this run, they had the same history of 25 other college football programs in a place that hasn't been historically a hotbed to recruit from for them. They're competing with SEC schools. Like, what he has done there is remarkable. It has created a new powerhouse program in college football out of nearly thin air. So right now, contemporaneously, they and Alabama are clearly neck and neck. And what he is doing in remaking what Clemson football is, to me, is nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, there's a lot of good programs in college football, but right now, the creme de la creme happens to be Clemson and Alabama. And last week, in talking with Ryan Day, and in the last couple of days, because we got a lot of kids, they're going to come out of school, and I've been just conversating with the coach. He's recruiting Ohio, and he's recruiting the nation, but it's with Clemson and Alabama in mind. He's saying, yeah, I need kids. I want kids from Ohio. Yeah, I want kids from around the nation. Yes. But if these kids can't help me beat Clemson and Alabama, that's the standard in college football. And with Ohio State having one of the top 5 programs, one of their coaches telling me, yes, I think everyone else in college football should recognize Clemson and Alabama. They are a step above Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, and Michigan. And these other schools are going to have to, from a quarterback standpoint, be able to protect that quarterback and getting after the quarterback. You're going to have to be able to match what these teams have been able to do. And what I think is more important, especially with the retirement of Urban Meyer, there's only one coach on the level of Nick Saban, and that's Dabo Swinney. All the other, there is no other. There are no legendary coaches in college football. Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban are the only two on that level. Everyone else is aspiring to get to that level. So not only from a coaching standpoint, because that helps recruiting.
Sure.
All right, because you can go in there and say, yeah, man, we stood eye to eye with the Beast 4 times in the last several years, and we whooped them twice. That right there is the best stat that Clemson has going for them.
And the other schools we've seen go on a 4 or 5 year run, they either had historical or infrastructure recruiting advantages. We saw what Urban did at Florida, that unbelievable run. But it shouldn't have been shocking to anyone that you get an all-time great head coach in a place like the University of Florida, that he can build a juggernaut. We've seen what the University of Miami has done multiple times over the last 30 years, what SC did under Pete Carroll. All of those made sense to me. Like what Oklahoma, I know they only won the 1 title with Stoops, but what they were able to do in, year out, being a top 5 team, Florida State with Bowden, like all those things made sense. For the reason I brought up the Coach K example is, for a guy to take over a smart kid school in Chapel Hill backyard, North Carolina's backyard, and then all of a sudden make them the premier program in college basketball, how does that happen? Clemson, to do what he's done in the SEC's backyard, in a school that had always been a 2nd-tier football school compared to the top teams, is remarkable to me.
How did he do it? What can you pinpoint and say, well, this is where it really changed, or this is where it really happened, or this is where the school really made the turn? Yeah,
Clemson's had a lot of good players for a long, long time, and they've been in the ACC. That's been dominated by Florida State. But when you look at what's been happening from a population standpoint in the United States, a lot of people are moving south. A lot of the factories and stuff closed down. Yep. So Pennsylvania, Ohio, and all the population, it's been affected. There's less human bodies in the North than in the South. So people have populated to the South, and University of South Carolina have not taken advantage of that being a hotbed. South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, within a 600-mile radius, there is a bunch of good football players. So Clemson was very, very close. Dabo Swinney. Dabo is a special personality, a great leader, and now they've been able to get the quarterback, the prototype. They had Deshaun Watson, and now they have Lawrence. So when you can do those types of things, stack recruiting class on recruiting class, and he's got really, really good big people. Great offensive line and depth on the defensive line that stood together for 4 or 5
what
years.
Alabama was known to be able to do, recruiting class on recruiting class.
Oh, absolutely. Like, that is, you want to know who's going to be in the top 10 in college football.
College football is about recruiting.
Yeah, look, you want to know who's going to be in the 2019 top 10? Go look at the 2015 Rivals recruiting rankings. Like, you want to know and look at the top 10 there. That is, those things, it is all about getting the players, but then it's also about developing the players, and that's where the university gets credit. They've given, the other advantage Saban has always had is, or I shouldn't say always had, but has had recently is, you have the ability to pay coordinators like coaches, head coaches in some places, position coaches like coordinators. What'd you say Brent Venables makes?
Oh, over $2 million as a defensive coordinator. So now they have the resources.
Yeah.
They have the facilities. There's nothing you can use against them negatively as far as recruiting. Man, Clemson is here to stay. And Dabo Swinney, that, like, you don't have to worry about recruiting against him because, oh, he's going to go to his alma mater. He played at Alabama, but he's at home in Clemson, so he's going to be there for a long, long time.
It's his dream job. Like, it's at least it's turned into his dream job. It's not there is not a job you could offer Dabo Swinney that he would say, I want to leave Clemson.
No,
for.
not because it's 2 national championships that come against beating Alabama.
Right. So I mean, he has made them into to win the game the way they want it, because the first 2 games were coin flip games. Either team could have won it, but they could have lost them both. Last year they got beat soundly. To whoop Alabama the way they did last night was as impressive a performance I've seen in college football in a very long time.
Guys,
Yeah.
this, with you two, my dream job.
Oh, thank you, Jenna Wolf.
Only
We don't
place
have to
I
worry
wanna
about her
be.
going anywhere, see?
I'm over here, see. Right over here. Just like 3 degrees this way. Got to take a break. Awesome. That went well. Coming up, how can the
you tell the
Eagles...
truth, stop lying on TV.
I am not lying on
make it
TV.
24.
I did
Make it
indeed.
24.
How did
Made
the
it
Eagles pull off
23.
the upset in the Superdome? Malcolm Jenkins has the answer ahead on First Things First.
Dream job, and I keep waking up.
Tell the folks you're lying.
No, I'm not. I'm telling the
Tell
truth.
them you're
See,
lying.
I'm
I'm telling
I know
the
what his
truth.
dream job is.